back in the woods.
Morning guys, I'm Dave Conibear at the Pathfinder School, Southeast Ohio. I thought what we do today is continue with our series on trapping a little bit while I'm prepping for this trapping school and writing an article for issue number 11 of SRI on the versatility of body grip traps, or Conibears as they're sometimes called. And I thought what we'd do is we'd walk through a couple different body grip style traps and talk about them, and then talk about a little bit about the 110 Conibear or body grip trap, which is probably the most versatile for a bug out bag survival situation or short to medium term self-reliance situation. A 110 Conibear or 110 body grip trap is a very versatile trap, can be used a lot of ways. I have a video on that on the net already on the versatility of the 110 Conibear that you can go back and look at. I'll try to put a link on this video for that as well. But this trap is very simple in the fact that it doesn't require tools to set. And we're going to talk a little bit about safety as well. But first I wanted to kind of go over the history of the Conibear body grip trap. In the mid-1950s, early 1950s, there was a large movement in Canada from animal protection people to do away with foothold type traps because they thought they made the animals suffer. Scientific research has since shown that they don't really suffer as much as people believe they do. They are a foot gripping type trap that just holds the animal. That's why they're called a foot hold or a leg hold type trap. They just catch them generally in the joint if they're set right between the foot and the upper leg or the lower leg, and hold them fast so that they can't get away. Yes, there's some stress involved in that. There's probably an initial bruising involved in that, but it's not as painful or suffering as a lot of people might believe. So to alleviate all of those problems and to beat this legislation to the punch, as it were, Fred Conibear invented a trap that was later known as the Conibear or body grip trap. And this trap was a killing trap, so it was considered much more humane in the fact that when the animal entered the trap, he was immediately killed. There was no suffering or stress on the animal of him waiting for the hunter to come along and dispatch him. Not that they would know that was happening, but they wouldn't be stuck in one location and not be able to get away, and things like that would not stress the animal. This trap kills the animal. As long as it's employed correctly for the correct type of animal for the size of the trap, it will immediately kill the animal. Now if you use this 110 body grip or Conibear type trap in a survival scenario, you may not necessarily get the target animal that you're looking for, but most of the time you will, especially if it's baited with something that is stinky like guts and things of that nature, because the scavenger type animals like raccoons, possums, and things like that are going to come into that trap, and these 110s will pretty much do them in. I have seen animals that were very large, like very large raccoons and things, that were not killed by a 110 Conibear, but that's very rare. You can go up to a 120 or a 220 Conibear, which we'll talk about in a few minutes if you're concerned about that, and they're not that much bigger. But once you get up to a 330 type Conibear, which is a very large trap, then you're looking at an opening or a trap that's heavy and large enough that you're not going to want to carry that very far in your backpack unless your specific mission is to go out and trap for fur and for meat or for long-term sustainability, and we'll talk about that later as well. So let's get into these traps, talk about some of the safety mechanisms, talk about how to set them. I'll get a close-up of this camera and we'll get right on it. Okay, so let's first talk about the number 110 Conibear body grip trap, and they're sold on our website as a 110 body grip type trap, and these are the ones that I would recommend for a survival type situation where you're going to put some traps in your bag to help further your chances of gathering meat in a short or medium term self-reliance situation or survival situation. It has a single spring on one side, and it basically operates in an X pattern so that the trap opens and closes by an X. So when the trap is open, the animal walks through it. When he trips the trigger, it closes down in an X fashion on the animal. These traps don't take any kind of special tools to set. You can safely set them with your hands. All you do is compress the spring and then hold the jaws of the trap. As long as you're holding those jaws, that trap can't close. Then if you come over and set this trigger mechanism and these whiskers on this back side are the trigger, and this metal piece with the steps cut into it is called the dog. And that dog sets on top of the trigger mechanism. And there are 3 different settings in that dog to make that trap wider or narrower. Sometimes they'll come cut at different depths for different sensitivity. Again, like we talked about in our earlier video on waxing traps, you don't need to wax a Conibear trap. It's slippery enough as it is. There's just a small slit on top of this whisker that moves back and forth, and the premise is that when that dog is moved, it releases the trigger. So as soon as an animal pushes in on this, whether it's by his paw, by his head, trying to get to the bait that you have on these whiskers, or below the whiskers or behind the whiskers, he's going to set this trap off. So to safely set this, you want to hold on to that X pattern, set it to the dog setting that you want, and then grip the spring again as you're letting go. And as long as you have that spring compressed with your hand or held tight, you're not going to get snapped in a trap. And then you have a chain off the side of that spring mechanism that you can use to stake this trap out or tie it down so that it can't get away if you do not in fact kill the animal straight away. So what happens with that is the animal will come in to the trap, and you'll have this trap staked in place. He'll enter the trap either, again, head first or with a paw and shoulder to try to get at this bait. And when he does that, it will snap down on top of his neck, his upper shoulder and back and things like that. And it, like I said, it's meant to be an immediate killing type trap. And all Conibear body grip traps work on this exact same principle. They just get bigger and bigger, and they add a double spring mechanism. Okay, moving up the chain here, this would be what would be considered a 120 body grip or Conibear style trap, and the trigger, or the dog, or the trigger has been modified a little bit on this one. It's got a space to hang bait right here, like hanging a bag of bait or something like that. You can make modifications to these things any way you need to for your trapping needs. This one's been modified for a different type of set, okay, like a water type set. But once you get to these traps that have double springs on them, they're going to have a safety latch on them that you fold over when you compress the spring. So what you'll do is you will compress the spring either by hand or by tool, and you'll put that latch over the top, and that will be a safety catch. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. And like I said, these smaller traps are fairly easy to set by hand. You can see I compress both of those springs by hand. When we get to a bigger trap, it's going to be a whole different ball game. And then you would spread this out with your hands like this, again holding on to it. You'd leave these set in case it goes off. It can't spring into your hand. I usually scoot them back just a little bit, and I pay attention to where they're at. Then I set my dog, and you can see how it's wanting to jump off of there already. And then I let go, holding on to one of the springs, but both of the sets are still there. Both the safety catches are still there. And once I get that trap secured, set, baited, and ready to go, now I'm going to release my safety catches so that the trap will go off when it's triggered. And these safety catches can be put right back in place very easily if I have to mess with that trap. The further you move them back on here, the less those springs are going to be able to move on you when it tries to open up. But it's not going to let this thing catch your hand as long as you have these safety latches over the top. So this is considered a 120 Conibear, and the difference between a 110 and a 120 Conibear or body grip trap is just the added spring. The size is the same. So if you were trying to make sure that you had a kill on maybe a slightly larger animal, something like that, maybe you want to go to the double spring. But then again, as soon as you go to this double spring, you've added that much weight for every trap that you're going to carry within your pack. So it depends on whether you're trapping, you know, for survival, or whether you're trapping as a hobby or to make a living or feed your family. Okay, once you get into anything bigger than the 120 Conibear, when you start getting into 220s and the trap gets a lot larger, the metal gets a lot heavier, and the springs have a lot more tension on them, you're going to want a setting tool for this job. Now you can do these by hand. There's no doubt. I know guys that set these by hand. They have the safety catches on them and everything just like the other ones do. But it will make it a lot easier on you, especially in cold weather. It'll make it a lot easier on you if you set these with a tool. And the way that tool works is, it's just a very simple mechanism. This one is made out of aluminum, It's a little bit smaller and lighter. And this one is made out of 2 pieces of flat stock steel. And all that's done here is a hole or a notch is cut in both sides. As you can see, this one is. And what that's used for is, that's used to grab that spring at the eye. And there's an eye right here on the trap. So you just make sure that you're right side up, basically, so that you've got that catch lever right there. And these things will want to try to fold up on you. Not going to hurt you any if they do. It's just a spring being powerful. And you'll want to grab that on both sides like this and compress it together with that tool. And once you get that done, then you can come over and you can set your safety catch over the top. Just like that. And that will allow you to let go of it just like on the 120. Then you would fold the other one out and you would do the same thing. At this point, the trap's not set anyway. All you're doing right now is compressing the spring mechanisms. So there's nothing here that's going to catch your hand because you haven't opened the trap yet. Like I said, these things don't want to fold up on you because that's just the way they are. Sometimes it's easier to do this on the ground than it is on the top of a stump. Once you get it compressed, you can probably hold it with one hand pretty easy. And again, at that point, you've got it to where it's safe to go ahead and set the trap and open it up. So it's the same thing. You've just got longer whiskers on here and a bigger dog, but you're going to open it up like this. Make sure that your safety catches are in place. Drop the dog where you want it over the top of your whiskers. Again, before you let go, take a look at your safety catches. See that popped right off of there. Before you let go, take a look at your safety catches and make sure that they are in place and where you want them. At that point, you can let go. Then you can move these safety catches out of the way when you're ready to employ the trap or when the trap is set up into the proper set and baited and ready to go. This trap is quite a bit more powerful than the 110 or the 120, and it will have no problem taking larger animals like medium to large size coons and big possum, things like that. But again, you're going to sacrifice quite a bit of weight to carry this, but even carrying one of these in a survival type pack or in the trunk of your vehicle in your survival pack and things like that is not a bad idea. 3 of the number 110s or the 120s, depending on what you want to use, and one of these 220s will keep you in a lot of meat as long as you understand the different ways to set them and the versatility of this trap. And again, you can refer back to the video that I have on different sets with the 110 body grip, and you can use the 220 and the 330 the same way, as well as setting them in the water. So this is the 330 Conibear, and as you can see, this thing's about as big as a stump, and this thing will definitely hurt you. This will break your arm, so you got to be really careful with this thing. Now, same thing, you're going to want to always, without a doubt, there's no muscle in this thing, you're going to want to use a tool to set this. The principle is exactly the same. One spring at a time, you'll open this up, grab one spring at a time and compress it, just like that, and it's going to take a couple hands, especially if it's a new trap. And these things are even curved. These guard hooks are curved on this thing. When you hook them on there, you're safe, okay? As long as they're hooked on, they're safe. And then you'll want to do the same thing over here. And again, like I said, you haven't got this trap set, so right now the only tension is on the spring itself. And again, as long as you have this thing unset, the only thing that can happen is that spring can pop. The trap's not going to close because it's already closed. But again, you'll want to lay this probably on the ground. I'm wrestling with this thing on top of a stump, which I probably should not be doing. I should be doing this on the ground. And you got to get it in the eyes, and this trap tool right here is barely big enough to even set a 330. said, you're going to have to hold on to it. And a one-hand hold on this thing is a little bit tough all by itself. Once you get those springs safe, you're good. And then at that point, you know, you can X this trap out and set it and not have to worry too much about the springs. As long as those catches are in place, you're in good shape. If they're hanging down, it's only going to slide backwards. If I can press it a little bit, all it can do is slide backwards. All I can do is slide backwards like that, so it can't open on me. Again, get your dog to the setting you want it and drop it on there. Get your whiskers in the middle of your trap. Whether you've got them baited or not, that's up to you. Again, before you let go of this thing, make sure that you're set and that your safety catches are on. At that point, again, you can drop the safety catches off once you've got this ready to employ. This is for larger animals. Large beaver and things like that are what these 330s are used for, but this thing would definitely take out a coyote, no problem.
Less than a mile or so to the end of the dirt road, there's a place us country folk go to have a good time, yeah. Keg of beer and a bonfire, locking hubs on a mud tire, jumping rabbits through the barbed wire by the moonshine still.
Okay guys, well, I'm Dave Conibear at the Pathfinder School. I appreciate you joining me for another video. The reason we went over these 110 Conibears or 110 body grip traps on up to 330 was to give you an example of what I believe is the best trap to use in a self-reliance or short-term, medium-term survival situation. Obviously, we're going to go over foothold type traps as well, both single spring, double spring, coil spring, and things like that, how to tune those traps and get them ready and things like that in the future. But I'm trying to get these videos done in a logical progression, and the logical progression says this is the trap I'm most likely to carry with me the majority of the time, unless I'm running a trap line. So those are the ones I wanted to go over first. I had several questions about safety, numbers, names, things like that, how to set them. So I wanted to go over that with you guys today. I appreciate you joining me for this video. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything that you do for myself, for my school, and for my family. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can.